So here's a question for you. Where do our morals actually come from? Are we just born with a sense of right and wrong? Or is it something we learn? And maybe the bigger question is, can that sense of morality change over time? To get some answers, we're going to do something kind of cool. We're going to look at what a group of researchers were thinking about this very question. For this explainer, we are literally opening up a time capsule. This is an academic paper from 1996, all about business ethics. We're going to see what its research from the mid-90s can tell us today about how we develop our moral compass. So, right out of the gate, the paper kicks off by tackling a question that feels, well, like it could have been written yesterday. Does it seem like people are just getting less honest? To answer that, the researchers looked at some survey data that had been collected over several years, and what they found seemed to point toward a real shift in public perception during the early 90s. Okay, now this is where things get really interesting. Take a look at that top line. The belief that an unselfish person is taken advantage of, it jumps from 53% in 1988 to a frankly staggering 91% by 1996. And it's not an outlier. Look at the other statements, the idea that people are out for themselves or that the lie for personal gain. They all see these huge spikes. You're looking at a dramatic wave of pessimism in just a few short years. So the crucial point the paper makes is that this perception was especially strong when people thought about the business world. And that raises the big question, right? Why? Was something fundamentally changing, or was it just our perception of things? To explore how a group's values can totally change, the paper uses a shocking and pretty extreme example. We're not talking about a typical corporation here. We're talking about the mafia. This is a powerful quote from a former mafioso who was testifying in 1988. He's arguing that the organization he knew was founded on a certain code, a very warped sense of honor, but that it had been completely wiped out and replaced by something else entirely. And this illustrates that change so clearly. The original ideals, however twisted they were, of honor, family, and protection had been corrupted. They were replaced by pure greed, drugs, and money. It's a stark example of how a group's entire moral framework can just collapse. This whole case study leads us right to the core of the paper. I mean, if a moral code can be corrupted so completely, it really begs the question, how do we build that moral code within ourselves to begin with? All right, let's dive into a foundational theory the paper discusses, Lawrence Kohlberg's stages of moral development. The best way to think of it is like climbing a ladder, where each rung represents a more sophisticated way of thinking about right and wrong. At the bottom of the ladder, we've got pure self-interest. You follow the rules to avoid punishment. In the middle, you conform to social norms. You do your duty because that's what society expects. And at the very top, you act based on universal principles, a personal conscience that might even lead you to defy unjust laws because you believe it's the right thing to do. And here's the crucial point the paper makes based on Kohlberg's research. This isn't just for kids. This journey doesn't just stop when we become adults. We're on this path our entire lives, with the potential to keep learning and evolving our moral understanding. But Kohlberg's ladder isn't the only piece of the puzzle. The research points to several other key factors that help shape our understanding of ethics as we mature. So, before Kohlberg, there was Jean Piaget. His big idea was that you can't have complex moral reasoning without complex thinking. Our ability to understand abstract ethical ideas grows hand in hand with our overall intellectual ability. So when you put it all together, our moral compass is built by a whole host of things. Our age, our life experiences, our education, and even just talking through complex problems with other people. It's an active social process. This all leads to the big practical question the paper wanted to answer, especially for the business world. Can you actually teach someone to be more ethical? The paper makes a really striking estimation for its time, that 75% of the workforce would need retraining to navigate an increasingly complex world. And a huge part of that retraining, the researchers argued, needed to be focused specifically on ethical decision-making. And after reviewing all these theories of development, the paper comes to a refreshingly optimistic conclusion. Yes, absolutely. It suggests moral learning isn't much different from any other kind of learning. Here's the takeaway, straight from the source. The evidence shows that we can actively train people to reason through ethical dilemmas more effectively. Our moral framework isn't fixed. It's something we can consciously develop and improve. So that leaves us with a final thought.
If morality is something that can be learned and developed through training and experience, what have we chosen to teach ourselves in the decades since?